Hello all and welcome to another video today where I'll be taking you through a business environment mock exam. So part one of this video I'll be taking you through questions 1 through to 4, and then in part 2 I'll be covering questions 4 through to 8. Just before we make a start, be sure to go follow me on Instagram where I post regular AAT updates on my story, and also if you're looking to really boost your chance of passing this exam, be sure to go over to my website and check out my group revision sessions for this unit and other AAT units. There's also another mock exam available to purchase on there if you're looking for additional material. Anyway, let's get on with the mock. I hope you do find this useful, and remember, if you do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more AAT videos. Right then, so the Business Environment Synoptic exam is a 2-hour exam and it consists of 8 tasks. And the total marks on offer for this one are 100. Now, they aren't split equally across the tasks, so they do vary each task, and that's something that I'll go through at the start of each one. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into task 1 and make a start. So task 1 is worth 10 marks and is about the different business types and their functions, and this task contains parts A through to C. Part A, identify whether the following statements about business ownership are true or false. So it's 1 mark for each correct statement. Okay, so statement 1, one benefit of a partnership is that the owners are not personally responsible for the business debt. So that would be false. Okay, now a partnership has something called unlimited liability. And what that means is if the business were to get into a position of debt, the owners or the partners within the partnership are then personally liable for any business debts. Okay, whereas in a limited liability business, so such as a limited company, you are only responsible for the amount of money that you have put in or have kept within the business. So your personal assets wouldn't be at risk. The next one, a sole trader has unlimited liability. So that one is true. So as I've just described, unlimited liability means that you are not protected in the sense that if the business were, again, same as a partnership, to fall into a position of debt, the sole trader's personal assets would be at risk. And then the third one, owners of a limited company are known as stakeholders. So that would be false. So the owners of a limited company are what's known as shareholders. Now, a shareholder is different to a stakeholder. So a shareholder is someone who owns a certain amount of shares within a company, whereas a stakeholder is effectively anyone who has an interest in the activities of that business. So that could literally be, customers, suppliers, staff, all of those are stakeholders. However, they're not classed as shareholders. They don't have an actual ownership within the business. Okay, so moving down. You work for a firm of accountants as a trainee. Your manager knows you're learning about different types of businesses and has asked you for help. He has asked you to develop a page on the company website to help answer typical questions they often receive. Part B, identify the correct business type described in each of the statements below. There may be more than one type relevant to each statement. So this is for 4 marks. So I would hazard a guess that there are 4 boxes here that are going to be ticked. But we'll see. Okay, we don't know that yet, but with it being 4 marks, I would assume that it's 1 mark for each correct tick. So the first statement then, the business type or types must be registered on incorporation. So that would relate to a private limited company. Now the other 2, sole traders and partnerships, do not need registering for incorporation. So hopefully this is something that you've read about within your textbook. Now, if it was a limited liability partnership, which it specifically states is not there, then they would need to register in terms of they would need to be incorporated. However, with it being a normal partnership, not a limited liability, they wouldn't need to register. Okay, now the next one, the business type or types does not pay corporation tax. Aha, so we have 2 on here. So the only one that pays corporation tax out of these 3 are private limited companies. Now, because this is asking which businesses do not pay corporation tax, that would be a sole trader and partnership. Now, both would pay income tax on their own individual earnings, but the business is not charged corporation tax. And then the last one, the business type is classed as an entity in its own right. So the only one that applies there would be to the private limited company. So when you incorporate, the company it almost becomes its own person. And we use the term entity for this. So effectively, it's like if they got into a legal case, it would be the business that is being sued rather than the shareholders. Now, it's feasible for the individual shareholders to be sued. However, that comes with all sorts of complications because we have something called the corporate veil, which applies when dealing with a private limited company. And that's because the company itself becomes its own entity, almost like its own person. So when contracts are being signed, although they're being signed by a person, the names within the actual contract will state the limited company. So that covers question B. Let's now scroll down to part C. A business has decided to relocate to a new factory to optimize its production capacity. The size of the new building means that they are able to increase production to satisfy the increased demand from their online sales. This will also mean an increase in staffing levels are required. Part C. Select which functions of the business the following statements relate to. Okay, so let's have a look. So we've got finding a suitable location for the new factory. And we've got some options. So we've got operations, we've got finance and operations and human resources, so HR. So out of those three, I would personally go for operations and human resources. Okay, now if we think about this, this is the location, okay, not any sort of cost. So because it's just location of the factory, that would impact obviously the operations team, okay, because obviously location will have literally a direct impact on how they operate. And HR, because if we've got staff and we're relocating the offices, obviously that's going to have an impact on them because they'll be traveling to a different location. They also need to make sure it's safe, etc. So I would say that's operations and HR. The next one, finding a suitable premises in the preferred, suitable premises, okay, in the preferred location for the new factory. So let's see what options we've got. So we've got finance and operations, and we've got finance and distribution. So I would say that is finance and operations. Okay, so a suitable premises. So straight away, that's going to involve operations because they need to make sure that it's fit for purpose. And then obviously it would involve finance because we need to actually be able to afford the premises that we're wanting to either buy or rent. I don't know if it states that within the question. I don't think it does, just says relocate. But obviously there would be some form of cost involved in that, and we need to make sure that we can afford it as a business. So that would be finance and operations. And then the last one, so finding a suitable app for customers to use to track their orders. So we've got IT, so definitely IT and distribution, operations and IT. Okay, so distribution usually falls within operations. I would say that's operations and IT, although realistically, just having a look at these again, in the real world, I would actually say it's operations. If you splitting out distribution, it would be operations, distribution, IT, and finance, really. It would involve all of them. However, for the purposes of this, since we don't have that option, I would say the most fitting would be operations and IT. Okay, so that finishes task 1. Let's now move on to task 2. So task 2 is worth 13 marks, and this task is about the finance function, its information requirements and sources, and its role within the wider organisation. This task contains parts A through to F. You work in the finance function within the head office, and your organisation has recently expanded its operations and taken over a number of small businesses. They are not used to having a service provided in a different location. It is suggested an email is sent to everyone providing information about the role of the finance function. Part A. Complete the following statement about effective communication by selecting the most appropriate options to complete the gaps below. So we've got the information should be, and we've either got correct, comprehensive or concise. Now bear in mind this is about effective communication. So out of those three options, for it to be effective, we would want the information in the email to be concise, and it should also be, and we've got three options, so meets the needs of the sender, meets the needs of the recipient, or be easy to communicate. So because this has been sent out to other staff members, it would need to meet the needs of the recipient in order for it to be effective communication. They're the ones receiving the email, they're the ones who are going to read it. Therefore, for it to be effective communication from the sender, it needs to meet the needs of the recipient. Okay, so nothing too bad to start off with. Let's move down to part B then. So identify whether the following statements about the role of information within the finance function are true or false. 3 marks, 1 mark for each statement. So the first one, useful information is relevant and appropriate. This one is one of those typical ones where you either know this from what you've learned within your book, and it should be that it's listed out what makes effective communication. And this one would therefore be false, because the actual requirement for useful information is that it is relevant and reliable rather than relevant and appropriate. And therefore that one would be false. These should be listed within your textbook, so do have a look over them if it is something that you forgot. The next one, non-financial information is not important in the work of the finance function. Of course that is false. The finance function still requires non-financial information from other teams like IT, HR, production, all of which could be classified as non-financial information. However, that does not mean it's not useful for the finance function, and therefore that would be false. The third one, the information produced by the finance function will help managers of the business make better decisions. Absolutely true. So the information produced by the finance function will obviously be helpful to managers of the business to be able to make better decisions. That's one of the most useful aspects of management accounts, is that they provide monthly information to managers to be able to make decisions. So that would be absolutely true. Moving down then, so the expansion of the business means that the business is struggling with financial solvency. The finance director has suggested that it would be good to focus on the business solvency and efficient working practices. It has been suggested that top tips could be shared throughout the organisation to help everyone understand how they can contribute. Part C, identify 2 actions that could support financial solvency and 2 actions that could support efficient working practices. So, financial solvency is effectively the cash available within the business. So it's getting money in quicker from customers, it's paying suppliers as late as possible without going over credit terms, and using our cash efficiently. Efficient working practices are all about cutting down time, so cutting down in areas that we don't feel are necessary, that don't add any value to the business. So let's have a look at these actions. We need to pick 2 from each. So we need to pick 2 financial solvency, which help with financial solvency, and we need to pick 2 which will help with efficient working practices. Now there are 5 on this list. That means there will be 1 that does not apply to either. So the first action then, maintain all machinery regularly to ensure sales targets can be met. Well, if we're maintaining machinery, i.e. keeping it in a position where it's able to produce goods, that would be part of efficient working practices. Now the next one, source suppliers who offer extended credit terms. So this is stating that we would find suppliers which give us a credit period of expected over 30 days really. If the standard is 30 days, some suppliers will offer credit terms at 60 days, which therefore helps the business's financial solvency because they have up to 60 days in which to pay rather than 30. So that would help improve financial solvency. The next one, order inventory when it falls to the minimum level. So not beyond minimum level, when it falls to the minimum level. Well, that would be a perfect example of efficient working practices. It means we're not over ordering and having to keep additional stock and therefore incurring holding fees at warehouses, etc. We are only keeping the stock that we need, but we equally aren't falling below that, meaning that potentially customers are ordering and we don't have the stock in order for them to be able to access their goods. So it would be a prime example of efficient working practices. So the next one, offer bulk discounts to maximize profits. Well, us offering bulk discounts to people wouldn't really have a great deal of effect on either financial solvency or efficient working practices. It may encourage customers to buy more. However, that wouldn't really help to maximize profits because you'd be giving them a discounted price anyway. You could potentially argue that they'd order more and therefore in the long run it could maximize profits. Equally, that still wouldn't fall into financial solvency or efficient working practices because financial solvency is really about cash movement. So maximizing profits wouldn't actually have any effect on that at all. So then the last one, rent machinery that is only used occasionally rather than buying it. Well, that obviously would help with financial solvency. It means that we're not having to pay money out on a regular basis for machinery that we are not using, and therefore to just rent it rather than actually buy it would be a far more effective use of the business's cash. Fantastic. So moving down then. So the next one states your hours of work are 9 AM to 5 PM with an hour for lunch each day. Your manager has suggested that you attend college and has asked you to take a look at your work schedule to identify the best day for this. The work schedule below details the days when routine tasks must be completed and the amount of time each task takes to complete. And we can see on here that we've got a number of tasks, the days that each are performed on, the duration for each task and the frequency, so how often it's done within that day or week. So it states for part D, identify the day on which you will be busiest with routine tasks and the number of hours spent. Okay, so all we need to do here is have a look at the tasks, have a look at the days each task is performed on, the duration, and then the frequency. Bring it all together and that will tell us what the busiest day is. So this first one is done daily, so that's not going to narrow things down at all because that's going to affect everything. The next task, Monday and Thursday. So this is process purchase invoices. And this is a 3-hour task. And it's obviously done twice weekly because it's done on a Monday and a Thursday. So as it stands, Monday and Thursday would be our busiest days. But let's keep going. So complete the payment run on a Tuesday and Friday. However, this is only 2 hours. So as it stands, Monday and Thursday are still our busiest days. Next, we've got preparing reports. That's Wednesday and that's just for an hour. So again, that still means that Monday and Thursday are the busiest. Reconcile statements is done on a Friday. Now, what that does mean is that Friday is now going to be equal to Monday and Thursday because we do complete the payment run on a Friday, which is 2 hours, and we reconcile statements on a Friday. So 2 hours plus 1 hour is 3 hours. So that would mean that we are as busy on a Friday as we are Monday and Thursday as it stands. However, we can see that this last one for the team meeting is also on a Monday, which means that our busiest day would be a Monday. So we now need to determine the number of hours spent on that Monday. So we've got answering emails, which is daily, but it is twice daily. So that's therefore 2 hours answering emails. We've got processing purchase invoices, which is 3 hours. So 2 hours plus 3 hours is 5 hours. And then we've got our team meeting, which is an hour. So the total number of hours would be 6. Moving down to part E, identify which day would be best for attending college based on your workload. So effectively, we are looking for the day which has the least amount of work. Now, considering we've only got answering emails and preparing reports on a Wednesday, which preparing reports is only 1 hour, answering emails is only 1 hour, but done twice daily, so 3 hours in total. Wednesday would be our quietest day. Therefore, the best day to attend college would be Wednesday. And then the last one, part F, identify what action can be taken regarding the routine tasks on your college day. And we've got 3 options. The finance tasks must all be completed, so should be allocated to another person. All tasks can be moved to another day, or cover will be required for some tasks. But what I would say for this example, bear in mind there is capacity on other days that all tasks could be moved to another day, because we've also got Friday, which is particularly quiet as well. We've got plenty of time in which we could do our current jobs on a Wednesday, so preparing reports, and we could also answer any emails on a Friday. Therefore, the best course of action here would be to move the tasks to another day. Okay, brilliant. So that finishes task 2. Let's now move on to task 3. So task 3 then is worth 14 marks and is about corporate social responsibility, often known as CSR, ethics and sustainability. This task contains part A through to G. Part A, identify the statement which best describes sustainability in terms of business activity for 1 mark. So the top one, it involves activities that only use up natural resources. Well, we definitely don't want to be doing that. We want to try keep the natural resources, so we don't want to be using them all up. The second option, it involves the payment of additional costs for using polluting resources. Well, that's definitely not sustainable and also quite unethical. That's basically saying we will just do as we want. We don't care about sustainability. We'll just pay the fine for doing what we shouldn't really do. So it's definitely not that one. So let's hope it's number 3. So it involves activities that do not use up natural resources. That would be absolutely correct. So we want to obviously preserve the natural resources for as long as possible. The next one then, the business you work for has a staff suggestion scheme to improve sustainability. You and a colleague have been discussing a number of suggestions. Part B, identify 2 suggestions that you could put forward to improve sustainability, and this is 2 marks, so 2 suggestions, 1 mark for each. The first one, reducing waste from the canteen. That would absolutely improve sustainability. So not using more food than what we actually need to for the business. The second one, encouraging staff to switch to electric cars. So although that would be seen as a sustainable act, that's obviously not from the business's perspective, that's from the individual staff member's perspective. So that one would not be improving sustainability from the business's perspective, which is what we're looking at here. The third one, install motion sensor lights in the office. So that would absolutely help with sustainability because it means we're not using as much electricity, because it means that the lights obviously wouldn't be on if no one was using them, i.e. no one was in the room with them. So that would absolutely help sustainability. We'll just make sure this last one is incorrect. So reduce the number of car parking spaces to encourage staff to use public transport. That would definitely not be the case. Okay, it's quite an unethical thing to do, quite a harsh thing to do as well. And therefore that one definitely would not improve sustainability. I mean, potentially it could do, however, definitely not an ethical thing to do. Okay, part C then, identify which of the following concepts does not form part of the triple bottom line principle that encourages sustainability. 1 mark, this is hopefully one of those that you've read about within your textbook. So the triple bottom line is made up of people, profit and planet. So out of those 4 options, the one that does not form part of the triple bottom line would be price. So the next one, the business has decided that the best suggestion received to support their sustainability initiative is to install solar panels. They also need to ensure the initiative supports their overall business objective to maximise returns to shareholders in the long term. You've been asked to cost this initiative and have identified there will be additional initial costs that have not been included in the current budgets. These initial costs will be covered by grants that are available from the government when the project is complete in the following year. Part D, complete the following statement by selecting the option below. This initiative will reduce profit, and so less will be available to distribute to shareholders. The solar panels, and we've got should or should not be installed. So the correct option here would be should. Now, although it will initially reduce profit, the initial costs, it's stating, will be covered by grants. So although it will initially reduce profits, you should then get that money back. It looks like it won't be done until the following year. However, all that means is realistically you're delaying the profits to shareholders. And at the end of the day, the overall objective is still to improve sustainability. So this would still be the best option for the business. Okay, then part E, identify the statement that best describes the AAT Code of Professional Ethics. So we've got, it is a set of rules that must be complied with. Not really the main aim of the Code of Professional Ethics, it's more to do with guidance. So let's have a look at the next one. So it is a set of principles that guides members to do the right thing. That is exactly what the AAT Code of Professional Ethics is there for. So we'll just double check as well that this bottom one is incorrect. So it is based on law. So straight away we know that that isn't correct because it's something that the AAT come up with that isn't based on law. It is about ethical issues. So it would definitely not be that bottom one, and therefore it would indeed be the middle one. Okay, moving down to part F then, match the principle with each of the statements below. So we can see that we've got 4 statements and we need to match them off against integrity, objectivity, professional behaviour, or professional competence and due care. So the first statement, making unbiased decisions. So as soon as we see the word unbiased, it's going to be objectivity. So objectivity is literally not being biased towards a particular person or business, or just not being biased when making decisions. So the next one, following accounting rules. So this one would be professional behaviour. So professional behaviour is an accountant's ability to follow regulations and to behave as expected in your place of work. And then the third one, consistently applying high moral values, would be integrity. So it's being truthful and honest in all transactions and the way in which you act within business. And then the last one, keeping up to date with accounting rules, would be your professional competence. So that includes such as completing CPD or additional qualifications to make sure that you are A, up to date, and B, that you are competent in being able to perform the tasks that you say you can. Okay, hopefully nothing too harsh there. Then moving down, you have recently started work in the payments team of Bob Limited, a building contractor. I wonder where they got that name from. You identify a number of invoices that appear to relate to the installation of a swimming pool at the home of your manager. You know that the last person in your role was dismissed by your manager for speaking directly to the finance director about issues in the office, and she has already told you to make sure you don't step out of line like the last person did. Okay, sounds a delight. So part G, complete the following statement about fundamental principles by selecting the correct options to complete the gaps below. So 2 marks, 1 mark for each. This is a absolute intimidation threat. So they are threatening you in order to make sure that you follow whatever it is that they want you to do. Fairly clear from the situation that's being given to us here. And should be, and again we've got 3 options, either ignored, challenged, or discussed with friends. So I think fairly straightforward, this one. It definitely shouldn't be ignored. It wouldn't be discussed with friends either. It would absolutely be challenged. Okay, and then the last one. So again, part G, but part 2 of G. Identify 2 actions you should take from the following list. So 1 mark for each action. So we can either prepare the report for your manager and ignore the invoices. Well, we definitely don't want to do that. We can rule that one straight out. Speak to the finance director directly. That would absolutely be the case. So even though they've threatened you, this is something that needs escalating to a senior member of staff, and therefore you would want to do that. The next one, ask your manager about the swimming pool. Excellent. Definitely not going to be that one. It's not something that should be encouraged. And then the last one, seek advice from AAT. So that would always be an option. If there's anything that you're not sure on, particularly ethically, they do have a line in which you can call and they will be able to advise on what the best practice is. Okay, so that completes task 3. Let's now move on to task 4, which is our first written question. So this task is about processing bookkeeping transactions and communicating information. This task contains parts A through to F. So let's have a look at our scenario then. You work in the accounts department of Eco Cups Limited, a company selling lightweight reusable plastic cups. Eco Cups prides itself on only selling high quality products. It was approached by a new supplier, Fab Cups Limited. These names are absolutely fantastic, by the way. The supplier was new in the market and offered Eco Cups both trade discounts and prompt payment discounts, which made it cheaper than any existing supplier of Eco Cups. Eco Cups obtained a quotation for 1,000 cups. The word cups has lost all meaning at this point. The 1,000 cups have a list price of £1,960, but Fab Cups agreed to offer a trade discount of 20% and a prompt payment discount of a further 10% if payment was received within 10 days. It's very generous. The quote also stated that delivery would be free. As a result of receiving this quotation, a purchase order was raised. The purchase order and other relevant documents can be viewed in the references section to the right. We'll go grab those in a second then. Your contact at Fab Cups is Fabio Marseille. Part A. Prepare a letter to Fabio to firstly identify errors in the existing delivery and invoice and suggest a course of action to resolve these issues. Your letter must be clear and structured appropriately, so there will be marks available for making sure that the structure is correct. So make sure you don't slip up on that and just bullet point them, because that is the easiest of marks that would have been lost. Okay, so let's bring up the references to start off with. So let's have a look here then. So we have the purchase order, which is this top document here, and we also have the goods received note here. And as we scroll down, we have the invoice here. So we are wanting, let's just go back here. It states that we need to identify errors in the existing delivery and the invoice. Okay, no problem at all. So I can spot some straight away because we've got quantity 994. However, we actually purchased 1,000, so straight away I can see one there. However, let's come back to that in a second. So the first thing we need to do is set out our letter. So to do that, we need to have the address. And thankfully, we have been given the address right here. So let's just start off then. So Fab Cups. Limited. And this is North Street, Newcastle, NE1 1KP. Okay, so we've got our address on there. That's how we would want to start it out. So let's make sure as well that we've got the date, and then we will greet our contact, which is Fabio. So let's get the date in. So the date looks to be the 3rd of July. We don't have a year by the looks of things. That's absolutely fine. So we could just, remember, just go with what we have available. It seems to be the 3rd of July. Okay, so now we've got that information, let's start off our email. Let's scroll down a bit as well. So, dear Fabio, thank you for your invoice dated the 3rd of July. I have reviewed the invoice and compared this to the delivery or the goods received note. We'll go with the goods received note, and have found some discrepancies that I would appreciate, if I could spell, I would appreciate you looking into. Okay, so let's, now that we've set out our intention within the email, we can now go on to explain some of the errors. However, before we do that, let's have a look at what some of these errors are. So spotted one straight away because we've got goods received of 994 and yet we ordered 1,000, so we know that that is a problem. So let's have a look for some of the others. So it states here that one box of 6 cups was missing and 2 boxes were damaged and unsellable. So we'd also want to bring up these that are unsellable because they're damaged. So we've got so far that the quantity isn't correct and that we've got some damaged items that have been received. We've also, let's have a look at the invoice and make sure everything adds up. So we've got discount of 10%, which was agreed. However, we agreed this is prompt payment discount. So that should be put on the bottom of the invoice, not included within the invoice. The actual agreed trade discount, which is what should be recorded here, was supposed to be 20%, not 10%. So we'd also need to raise that as well. So that's 2 extra things because we've got the incorrect trade discount amount and the fact that the prompt payment discount is not mentioned on the invoice at all. And then if we look back up, it also states that the delivery would be free, and yet we can see that delivery has been charged at £15. So therefore that would also need raising. So let's put these in order. So quite a bit to add in here, but that's absolutely fine. So each point we should be looking at a mark for every single one here. So let's detail each of these out. So we'll start off with the fact that we got this quantity at 994 rather than 1,000 units. The first error is that only 994 units have been delivered. However, 1,000 were ordered. Included within the 994 that were delivered, 2 boxes were damaged and therefore unsellable. The next error is that the trade discount has been calculated at 10%. However, the agreed amount, or agreed percentage, I would go with, was 20%. There was also an agreed prompt payment discount offered of 10% if payment was received within 10 days. This has not been included on the invoice. So there should be a note at the bottom of an invoice to state if there is any prompt payment discount offered, and if so, what that percentage is and what the terms are, i.e. how fast does it need to be paid in order for them to take that prompt payment discount. The final error is regarding delivery. again, can't spell, regarding delivery, which was agreed would be 0. However, it has been charged at £15 on the invoice. The errors above have been noted, the delivery note and on the invoice. So we've detailed all the issues that we found. All we need to do now is wrap it up. So please, could you action the above issues and reissue the invoice with the correct amounts, or issue a credit note to correct the errors. And then to finish it off, because we know the person, yours sincerely. And then does it give us actually our name at all? So you work in the accounts department? No, so we can just sign it off with our own name. That's fine. Yours sincerely, Will. Okay, fantastic. So we should be able to see that we've got a clear structure here, which it asks for. So it says your letter must be clear and structured appropriately. So we've structured our letter clearly. We've raised all the points that we need to, and we have asked for Fabio to action each of the points that we've listed. Okay, so a lot of easy marks on offer there. I appreciate it's difficult to get all 12 when you're in the exam and you've got to think of all these different points, but we should hopefully be able to get the vast majority. So we can now close down our references and we can scroll down. So the next one, the purchasing manager does not think the standard of service from Fab Cups has been acceptable, and without permission from directors of Eco Cup Limited, has posted the following message on Eco Cup's social media account. Fab Cups are an absolute joke. Their products are low quality and they charge much more than they promise. Part B, identify whether each of the following could be a potential consequence of this message for Eco Cups. Potential consequences then. So we've got they may lose Fab Cups as a supplier, but this post will have no impact on whether other suppliers wish to work with them. That would absolutely be false. If you're putting something out on social media that is negative towards one of your suppliers, it may mean that other suppliers are also less inclined to work with you, knowing what the potential consequences are of you acting unprofessionally. And then the next one, Fab Cups are under a duty to respond, and so the profile of both companies will be raised. All publicity is good publicity. Again, hopefully that's fairly obviously false. Okay, we do not want to do anything that brings the reputation and the business into disrepute, and therefore we would want to act both ethically and professionally. So absolutely that would be false. Moving down then, so following the purchasing manager's post, the company has decided that all employees must be trained on effective communication. Part C, identify which one of the following statements is correct. So the first one then, social media is not an appropriate tool for use in the business environment. That one is definitely not correct. It is definitely a useful tool. So to say that it's not a useful tool is simply incorrect. There's a lot of businesses that do work on social media, so that would not be fair at all. The second one, all employees should have access to the social media account of their employer so they can share their thoughts with the public. Again, hopefully fairly obviously false. So it should definitely be password protected and only be able to access by a limited number of people. The next one, social media posts are not subject to any rules or regulations, and so businesses can post comments without risk of legal action. Again, absolutely false. So it could be seen as slander if it's not true. So again, there would be a risk of legal action, so that would be false. So let's hope it's this last one. So social media can be an effective form of business communication. Absolutely, it can be. A lot of businesses do communicate through social media, and therefore that would be absolutely true. Moving down then, so Eco Cups Limited has just received a payment of £3,600 from a customer. This is in relation to an invoice that was issued for £4,000. Part D, identify whether each of the following statements could explain the difference in payment. So the first statement then, the customer has returned goods worth £400 and has paid the net amount of the invoice and the credit note. So that would absolutely explain it. So if the invoice was for £4,000 and they returned goods of £400, that would be your difference between what was paid and what was originally on the invoice. So that could absolutely explain that difference. The next one, the customer has taken advantage of prompt payment discount and has therefore settled the invoice in full. So it would be a high amount of prompt payment discount. However, it absolutely is feasible, especially with one of the previous questions, having a prompt payment discount of 10%. The fact that they've paid $3,600, meaning that they would have taken a prompt payment discount of 10%, because 10% of 4,000 is 400, therefore they would only pay 3,600, could absolutely explain that difference. The third one, the customer has made a part payment towards the bill and 400 remains outstanding. Again, absolutely feasible. Okay, we don't have loads of information there. However, it could absolutely be a part payment. That would explain it. And then the last one, the customer has taken advantage of a trade discount and has therefore settled the invoice in full. That would not explain it, because if we think about a trade discount, it is already included within the invoice amount. So if the trade discount had been given, the amount on the invoice would be 3,600. It's not something that you take after the invoice has been issued. So therefore that would not explain the difference. Okay, moving down then. So part E here. Another customer has just returned an order of 200 extra large Eco Cups. The invoice was for £580. Part E then, identify which daybook will this be recorded. I think they've got that slightly confused. I think some of the words are wrong there. So identify which daybook this will be recorded in, I assume that's supposed to say. So if this is a return, we know straight away that it's either going to be sales returns or purchase returns. And considering this is a customer and therefore it's sales, it would be the sales returns daybook. And part F, so the last one, identify the impact that processing this transaction could have on each of the following items. So this is a sales returns. So we need to think about these statements and will they have no effect? Will they increase them or decrease them? So the first one, income in the profit and loss account, well, that would absolutely decrease your profit. If we're putting in a sales returns, that's offsetting against our sales. So anything that reduces our sales or is offset against our sales amount is going to decrease our profit. Anything that increases our sales would obviously increase profit. So then the last one, assets in the balance sheet. So again, think about the effect of this transaction. A sales return is going to affect your trade receivables, and it would go on the credit side of the trade receivables, lowering that amount down, because that amount of £580 would no longer be owed. Therefore, it would lower the amount in the trade receivables and therefore decrease our assets in the balance sheet. Okay, fantastic. So that does cover task 4. And that finishes part 1 of this video. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you found this video useful. Thanks again for watching. See you in part 2.